Wayne, so wonderful to meet you finally, and I'm so pleased that you're able to make it tonight for the fireside chat with David. I think it'll be fantastic. And I'm so interested in what led you into, what passion was it of yours that led you into developing RepowerCapital?
Well, it really started when I began my career as an investment banker on Wall Street. I was with Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette for a number of years, then moved out to California and opened an office for DLJ here and co-managed a leveraged buyout and turnaround fund. And then I left to go into the alternative energy business when I read Amory Lovin's article on the soft energy path. And spent a number of years creating a company called Wind Farms that Chevron backed. And we put together a couple $2 billion worth of large-scale wind energy projects. And then Ronald Reagan was elected president, and he killed the tax credits, and it all collapsed. So 5 years of my life and a lot of money went down the drain. And for the next 25 years, I spent my time building technology companies, but never really lost my love for renewables and, more importantly, my desire to do something about the energy crisis, which has now turned from the energy crisis into the climate crisis. And about 5 years ago, I sat down to figure out how I could get back into the business, and spent 6 months studying the renewable energy business to find out what was really holding it back, and discovered that the biggest problem was access to project capital. So that was an opportunity to apply technology to the way that capital is raised. So we've built this platform to more or less automate how project financing is raised, and we can do it 3 to 5 times faster and about 90% cheaper than an investment banking firm.
So I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, and we would say that's right livelihood, that you're involved in something like that. And I know His Holiness, who is
a number of years at the Zen Center.
Okay. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama always talks about looking after the planet and using renewable energy. So that's amazing that you've found a right livelihood that you're passionate about and that will help everyone. But not only that, but you're actually facilitating the opportunities for other business people or developers to actually get access to funding.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, one of our objectives is, when you look at the renewable energy business and how projects get financed, about 75 to 80% of the project developers in the middle market cannot find capital. And as a result, about $400 billion worth of projects a year do not get built. And we think we can solve that problem.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad to have you here today. I'm very excited about this. And as regards investment banking generally, you've obviously got a very good overview and you've been very thoughtful about your piece in it. Where do you think, what are the possibilities for investment banking? Because, I mean, I'm so impressed by your company and firm. I think that this would mean that we can have much more access to capital through investment banking or new opportunities. What's your view of that?
Well, I think the most significant thing that's going to happen is the application of technology to the process of raising money. Up until now, in the world of investment banking, and particularly, well, in general, investment bankers, when you interview them to hire them, they will always tell you that the reason you should hire them is because they have the relationships with the capital. But increasingly, relationships are not as important as information. And once information becomes as important or more important, then technology is going to play a much larger role than it's ever played. Well, it hasn't played any role really in investment banking until now. So we think technology is going to play a very significant role.
My main focus has been on venture capital and venture capitalists. So I wonder if that would be, do you think that could also be translated to venture capital? Because they also say that the relationships are the most important thing.
It's not as true in venture capital, and the reason is that in venture capital, and venture capital is in a section of financing called corporate finance. And in corporate finance, the decision making that goes into making a decision whether to invest or not to invest, or whether to allocate capital, is made on a lot of the decisions are made on judgments of, do you like the management, how big is the market, what kind of competitors are there, and so on. But in the world of project finance, and project finance is 10 times bigger than corporate finance, It's just the opposite. The decisions are made on, when people invest in projects, are made on things like, what are the returns? Do you have permits? Do you have a whole lot of check the boxes kinds of information? It's not judgment calls about the management, because you're investing in a project where you're investing in assets rather than people.
So venture capital will stay a relationship-based financial industry then?
Yeah, well, they're starting to apply technology, but it's much more difficult in that area.
So I was wondering if you've got an interesting story to tell me about, what's happened either before or after getting into RepowerCapital.
Probably the most significant event was that in 1973, during the first oil embargo, I owned a property, about an 80-acre place at the north end of the Napa Valley. And I was driving back from the San Francisco airport in a hellacious rainstorm, stopped on Lombard Street and spent an hour and a half in the gas line waiting for gas. When I got up to the Napa Valley, it was snowing. By the time I got to my property, it was about 2 feet of snow. And we went into, my property was about 4 miles in off the road. And by 5 o'clock, when we went to go in the house, because we were out playing in the snow, the power was off and the phones were out. And we ended up being snowed in for 5 days in an all-electric house with no lights, no water, nothing would run, obviously, without the electricity. And they had a Toyota Land Cruiser, but we couldn't even get out with that in the snow because we had almost 3.5 feet of snow. So I spent 5 days in an all-electric house thinking about the energy crisis. And when it was over, I said, I want to do something about it, and that was what led me into the renewable energy business.
Pretty scary stuff. It's sort of like the stuff of like movies, right?
It was actually kind of fun. We liked camping out. We were cooking in the fireplace, and we took a garbage can and made it into a hot tub and built a fire under it, and we had a lot of fun.
Okay, well, it's fantastic that that's where Repower got born, I guess, from that experience. And often these things are hard won personally before they become brilliant companies out there in the world. So thank you very much. That's a really interesting story.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight, and I'm so looking forward to the fireside chat.
Great. Thank you very much.